first time my parents split up, I was really young. I don't even remember it. Then the second time my parents split up, I was 6. And the third and final time my parents split up, I was in high school. If I would go over to someone else's family and they all like got along, it's kind of weird.
I never really knew my birth father. You know, I know his name. That's about it.
15, you know, my mother started getting a lot of calls, you know, from just random people. It's like, you know, your father, your husband is cheating on you with this and that. I saw your husband there.
Me and my mother for a while, and then me and my mother and my sister, and then me and my mother and my little brother up until the point where my stepfather, who I call my father now, came into my life.
And one day my mother just really confronted him and said, you know, what's going on? Did you cheat on me? He said yes, and they had a humongous fight, you know. And after that, they split up.
And it was a bummer.
I've been going through some lessons that are hard to understand, and I'm aware of many changes.
I go to Times Square Church, and I've been going there for 7 years. I'm a sound engineer over there now as a volunteer. My dad cheated on my mother. My dad got kicked out of the house and he just moved on, you know. Made me withdraw in a sense from him and just be like, you know, I can't even talk to you sometimes, you know, because what you did was just really split the family up and really devastated us, you know.
Well, my dad being gone, I guess I subliminally just went to TV father figures, where like I would watch TV shows and like, oh, that's what a dad's supposed to do. Oh, he's supposed to take me fishing. Just small stuff like that.
As I got older, you know, and I started to understand, I just understood that he wasn't there. And I mean, it brought up questions, you know, why did he leave? Why wasn't he there? Was it something I did? Was it something my mother did? What was wrong with us? It is what it is, and I got through it. And I mean, I'm all right for it. But of course, you know, there was definitely, I'd say, like something missing that, you know, if he'd have been around, I could have got.
Loving parents, and I had many girlfriends, and I had a lot of boyfriends, and we just, I was always around love. And that's where what the Bible calls vanity really came in. I found I had to fill this emptiness with myself. And so I became more proud and more vain and yet more bitter because there really was nothing beyond.
The hardest part of my life was my mom has bipolar, and so she was going through an episode. I tried calling the cops on her because of like the way that she was acting, but the cops showed up and they're just like, she didn't do anything illegal. I said, but she's being weird. You know, she needs to go to the hospital or something. Like, she didn't break the law. So after that happened, that was after my parents were split, and so I had to buy the food and I had to cook the food, and I was worried about losing the house because I didn't have enough money to pay the bills. I just remember just freaking out because I didn't know what to do.
You know, my grandmother died, and she died the day after my mother's birthday. And you know, that was like really rough. She wanted me to come by and clean her bathroom. The last thing I said to her was like, yeah, all right, I'll come. And then 2 days later, boom, you know, she's gone. And that really made me see that, you know, I don't really have the time that I thought I had because, you know, here today, gone tomorrow.
For my wife and I, our major crisis came when, after being married for 21 years, our son, our 19-year-old son, was killed in a car accident. Now, when that happens, your soul is destroyed. Your emotions are completely wiped out. Your mind is asking why. Your will shrivels up into inactivity and you just want life to go away. And we remain that way.
I'm learning that in dying you really start to live. when self is lost in body life. You touch what freedom is, and I see that what I really know is not just in my head. And what really counts isn't outward show, but what is in the depth.
I began to realize that if God were true and if God were love, then I really didn't understand love at all.
It was for a long time I didn't believe it. And just one day I was in my church and we had a big production. And just seeing the life of Christ again, something just changed in me that showed me that, that God really does care for us. Seeing people get saved and come to Him and just seeing it and, had the same mentality and we're free from that. And I'm like, God, I want that,
The crossover moment for me was when, as a student at the end of my sophomore year, and for the first time in my life, down on my knees, I recognized that God was a God who created me and loved me, and I had never said thank you one time in my life. And so finally, when that pride broke, which is usually our real problem, suddenly we experienced the presence of God. It made me weep.
I know that from the heart that, I don't want to continue the same life I've been living. I didn't want to continue the same things that I've been doing, I can't do this on my own. It's a thing that you have to help me daily to walk with you, and if I do fall, to bring me back to you.
If I didn't have that mindset, if I didn't believe in God, then I'd probably been like, oh, my mother's not here, so ain't nobody watching me. I can do whatever I want to do. Nobody gonna know. But having God in my life really is like that extra conviction to want to do right. Just like I don't want to disappoint my mother, I don't want to disappoint him either. And that really pushes me to go in the right direction. Because without him, I'd be in a whole lot of mess.
I always feel like if something bad is happening or some low point in my life, I always think that that's a challenge that He's going to walk me through. And when that happened with my mom, I was young at the time and I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to do it, but I knew that God was going to get me out.
In the depth of who I am, I still sensed the presence of God, even though in my soul and especially in my mind, I couldn't fathom, why did this happen to us? What possibly, how could we lose our oldest son?
I started talking to God more, and I kind of built my relationship with God, and then that really changed. It was a turning point in my life where it's I realized, all right, things happen, but as long as I have a relationship with God, at least I'm able to talk to Him about it.
Even when my soul was damaged and broken, He continued to pour out His love in me. I could sense His presence in me even when I couldn't even respond. The self-giving God never stops giving.
God is love. He's gonna love you no matter what. He loves everyone. No matter how much you mess up, it doesn't matter.
It's hard to explain. It's just something that really has to be experienced.
His son walked on earth and loved and healed and taught and cared for people. But his ultimate act of love was dying on the cross for me.
And he didn't do anything wrong. He did it because we were all sinners.
And all we have to do to get that forgiveness is to receive it from Him, to accept Him, to humble ourselves and say thank you for that forgiveness.
And left the world behind me, far, far behind me, far, far behind me. I've crossed the separating line and left the world behind me.
One take. One take.
Sad life of sin, its follies all forsaken. My standing place is now in Christ.